besties! Welcome to the first ever episode of Bestie Energy, the podcast. I'm Clark. You may know me from TikTok at Clark Unleashed. And this right here is my beautiful sister Alana, finally joining us.
I'm so excited to meet you. I have been so excited to come on. We've been talking about doing a podcast for actually a really long time. And so I'm really excited that it's finally happening.
I am super, super excited you're here. So really quick, before we get started on this episode, I want to tell you guys all about what Bestie Energy, the podcast, is. I think we're kind of the anti-true crime, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Like, we tell amazing stories. That's what we're going to be doing, that end in more of a positive light and a happy ending.
Yeah. So we're fashioning ourselves as the anti-true crime podcast, but to be clear, because if we ever get awesome and morbid ever hears of us, I'm not throwing shade, y'all. I'm not throwing shade.
I love my true crime girlies. I'm always watching Christina Randall and Kendall Ray. Love my true crime, but
this surprises me.
Yeah, not at all. But it's good to share kind of a more positive tone and a positive light with everybody. So.
Yeah, exactly. So in our stories, you know, they may get rough in the middle, but nobody's ending up dead.
Well, that's not necessarily true, because a lot of these stories are from the 1800s, even before then. So a lot of them do end up dead, but they're still happy stories. That's okay.
To be fair, we all end up dead, but it's not a story about someone dying.
Yeah, it's about their life. So
yeah, exactly. It's about amazing people doing amazing things. And actually, our first two podcast episodes, we're filming them both in March, and they're both about amazing women.
Yes, that's what we start with.
Yes, because it is Women's History Month. And the format that we're doing this in. So episode 1, Alana has prepared a story that she is going to tell me, and I'm going to react to it. I have not heard this story at all. Episode 2, I've prepared a story for Alana to hear. She's going to react to it. She hasn't heard it at all. And then just a couple quick more things before we get going. If you are listening to this on Spotify or Amazon Music, there is actually also a YouTube channel at Bestie Energy the Pod. We are filming it, and there's a video, so you can see how much taller than me Alana is.
She is a little higher up right now. She purposely made my chair a little lower so that she could feel a little taller.
I resent that. It came that way out of the box. But, you know, if I just go ahead, she's my little sister. We're talking like 8 years younger. Look at this nonsense. Ready? If I put my chair at the same height as hers.
That's always the tell. That's always the tell who's the older sister is the taller one.
Yeah. You remember when we used to play that game of like...
sister is the taller one, I'm sorry.
Remember when we used to play that game of like when we'd meet like new people and we'd say, which one of us do you think is older?
Well, and people would always guess you because they knew. They were like, something's fishy about here. I look older, but they wouldn't be asking if it was me. So they were like, it has to be you.
That's true.
And people know the shorter sister is always the oldest.
And you also just have like more of a mature air. Like I feel like I've been kind of a kid through my 20s.
I have black cat energy a little bit more.
Yeah. She's the black cat energy, I'm the Labrador energy, that's for sure.
And it's perfect.
That's for sure. Also, we both have ADHD, so you guys are going to get used to these little side quests. But one last thing. If you're listening to us on Spotify, listening to us on Amazon Music, or you're watching us on YouTube, we have a Patreon, besties. And the Patreon is actually called Bestie Rebellion. That's the name of my blog. That's the name of what I kind of got started on social media. Eventually, Bestie Energy may break off from that. But our first 1,000 subscribers are going to get access to downloadable Bestie Energy stickers. After that first 1,000 subscribers, they're going away. You will also get episodes 2 days early, ad-free, and a bonus episode every single month. And it's a great little community over there. Hop on over and join. It's Patreon/Bestie Rebellion.
Yes, and you actually have the benefit of signing up for both Bestie Rebellion and Bestie Energy as a combined deal together. So
exactly, yeah. You can sign up for some of my content as well if you like my stuff and you feel
I think that's why we're here. I think that's why we're here.
Well, you know, at some point we may be getting people who don't know me, so you never know.
Yes, welcome.
All right, so Alana has a story for me.
Yes, our first story. I'm really excited to share it. A lot of you may know it. It's a very popular story, but not told as much about the person I'm going to be talking about. So a lot of people know the Wright brothers, the people who were the inventors of the plane in the early 1900s.
Right, and they had like a bicycle shop, right?
They were actually bicycle Mechanists, yes, before they actually got into aviation and started experimenting with that.
The funny thing is that they stick in my brain from that movie with Jackie Chan, Around the World in 80 Days.
I actually forgot that movie even existed. So yeah, so
they run into him in the desert, and they've got a cart full of bicycles, and it was the Wilson brothers.
Well, I doubt Katharine Wright was there and mentioned at all.
She was not, because they got Owen Wilson and his brother from Legally Blonde, whose name I can't recall.
The Wilson brothers. There you
go. The Wilson brothers, or the Wright brothers. Anyway.
So, Wilbur and Orville Wright, they go by Will and Orv. They were the bicycle mechanics, but they had a little sister, Katharine Wright. This is going to take place in Dayton, Ohio, and she was born in 1874. But we'll see this kind of pick up in the early 1900s when she gets more involved.
And she's like an adult.
Yes. Yeah, and she's not a baby. So she was the youngest of the family, the only girl. She had a couple older brothers besides Wilbur and Orville, but we're not really going to be talking about them. She's the only girl, and they actually had tried to have a girl before, but they unfortunately had a miscarriage. So they were
the Wright brothers tried to have a girl?
Their parents.
Ah.
So they were really, really excited to have a girl finally, and they named her Katharine. So she went by Kate, but Orville and Wilbur actually called her Swess, which was a German term of endearment, meaning little sister. Kind of reminds me of how you call me Sestra.
Yeah, we call each other Sestra. Yeah, okay. This is an example of an ad break.
Yay, your favorite.
Yes, we love ad breaks, but you know what? If you don't want ad breaks, then you need to go join us on Patreon.
What are you doing?
Yeah, why are you here listening to ads? This is such a waste of time. But if you would like to join the Patreon, it's patreon.com/Bestie Rebellion. You will get all of our episodes early, ad-free, plus a bonus episode every month. And I am very active in that group, so you get to talk to us.
Yes. What are you doing? Why are you still here?
Why are you here? Why are you listening to this? Nobody likes commercials. Go away.
So Orville and Wilbur were actually the two youngest brothers. They were really known for being very socially anxious.
Huh.
I can relate. But they had a lot of social anxiety. They were not very vocal, very out there, putting themselves out in the crowds, but they were very smart, and they got into aviation experiments, and you'll see how Katharine can kind of help them with that aspect. So they're very antisocial.
So okay, wait. Let me back up here. So the Wilbur brothers. I don't know where that came from. The Wright brothers are they're antisocial and stuff. They eventually become the inventors of the airplane. But you're telling me that Katharine helped.
She did. She helped in the social role. She was actually their social manager. So she was a huge help to them.
What? Okay.
Because they had these great ideas, but if you think about it, if you have this great invention or idea, how are you going to sell it?
That's true.
They couldn't sell it. She was the one that helped them sell it. So, when she was just a little bit into her background before she became an adult as well, just before she was 15, she lost her mother, unfortunately, but it was a very tragic loss to tuberculosis. But
So her mom got their mom got tuberculosis.
Their mom got tuberculosis and passed away, unfortunately.
So do you know how old the brothers were? They were older than Katharine.
They're a few years older at this point. I think they were past high school, but I'm not
too
positive.
They're adults,
they were adults.
Katharine.
And the really common thing about this time period was when a mother would pass, like it was very common for a daughter to kind of fill that role, step in and be cleaning, cooking, all kinds of things for the men in the family. And it was really sad because she's the youngest one. So she had to take on all kinds of responsibility right after her mother died.
Wow. So her mother has passed. She's grieving. She probably was, I'm assuming she was close with her mother.
So close, yeah.
And now she's having to take care of her adult brothers.
Yes.
When she's the one who needs to
and
be
even more so, her father was a bishop. So he traveled throughout the U.S. all the time. He was gone all the time. So she was in charge of the house. I mean, she was in charge of the house, simply. That was what it was. She was the head of home, and she gained so much responsibility throughout the years. I mean, even when her father was out throughout, the U.S., he would send letters home to Ohio and be like, making sure Katharine was keeping up with her duties. He was very strict on her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like making sure, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? So,
sorry you lost your mother. Don't forget to wash the sheets.
Yes, so it was
wow.
Really, she had to jump in and just really take over the house for this time period. So that was really hard for her, of course. But she was really close to her younger brothers, Wilbur and Orville, during this time, especially.
I'm getting confused. I thought they were older than her.
I'm so sorry. I meant I'm saying younger brothers because she also had these older brothers that we're not talking about that are like in their 30s at this time. There's this big age gap between them and Orville and Wilbur. They have these older brothers, and then she has the younger brothers, but she's still the youngest. So I'm sorry, I'll call them her older brothers.
Gotcha.
But
I was confused. I was like, what do you mean her younger brothers? You just said they were grown.
They're the younger of her older brothers. So yeah. But she was very close to Wilbur, especially. They actually vowed to stay together as kids. When they were kids, they made this pact of like, we're going to stay together forever. We're never going to, part from each other, which is kind of sweet.
Aww.
Yeah. So she didn't really, as a young teenager and as a young woman, she didn't really get into dating as much. Like, she didn't really...
Well, I mean, did women date back then? Was that a thing? I feel like courting was a thing, but wasn't it like, hey, baby, come ride down the lane with me in my buggy? Ooh, I saw them alone together in a horse-drawn carriage.
For real. Did you see her?
Oh, no. She gave him a peck on the cheek.
No, for real. That's not accurate. So... just to describe Kate, like her look, so you can kind of get a visual of what she looked like. Somebody later described her, who was an aviator that worked with the brothers later on. They described her as having coal black hair, deep blue eyes, and a smile that could blind you. Who does that remind you of?
You?
I mean, I'm thinking more of our grandmother.
Oh, snap. Our grandmother was fine.
Gorgeous.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking that coal black hair, deep blue eyes, and a smile. Oh my gosh.
That look that she could give you, but when she smiles,
beautiful.
She was so far out of our grandfather's. She was so far out of our grandfather's league.
Oh my gosh, 100%. But she would give you a look that would just stop you in your tracks.
You got her like black cat energy and like the regality thing. I took after our grandfather, short and red haired. What's going on? This is unfair. No. I would like a refund on the genetics.
Oh my goodness. Genetics are tricky sometimes, but at least you got those lips. So
I did get the lip, but I didn't get that from her. I got that from God's side of the family.
There you go.
She don't got lips. I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry. You're so beautiful. I love you so much.
They weren't popular back in the day either. Like having those big lips, that wasn't like as big of a thing.
So sidetrack. Just because you just said that. The reason that wasn't a thing is because that racism.
There you go. That makes sense, though. Yeah.
There's a conversation stopper.
There you go. I'm shocked. So we're gonna go on to Katharine's life into college. Really cool fact about Katharine. She was the only sibling in her family that got a college degree.
So her brothers didn't get college.
What? No, she was the only one who got a college degree.
And she was a girl.
And she was one of the only women at that time, like, who could go to college. She went to Oberlin, which was like one of the only schools in the U.S. that was like co-ed at the time, accepting women. Isn't that so cool?
Why have I never heard of her?
She's amazing. Yeah.
She was a bad bee.
So she actually went to Oberlin College, and it's also in Ohio, but she had a couple options at this time. Women could become, nurses or teachers, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only option.
So she became a teacher, super cool. In 1893, that was when she earned her college degree.
Wow.
Which is awesome.
So she was young, too, then, because you said she was born in 1974, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't even 20 yet.
She was born, 1874. So, yeah, she was very young.
Wow.
So she went to college. She made a lot of friends in college, and she had this roommate named Margaret. She became very good friends with him, and also made a friend named Terry Haskell, who was really good at math. And she wasn't very good at math, so she kind of used this to her advantage to kind of have him tutor her at math. But she seemed to excel in languages, so she learned languages really well, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And it was actually common at this time during like co-ed colleges, which is kind of still new at this time too, during the senior year for a man to propose to a woman before they like graduated and moved on, and
That was Clark sighing, for those of you listening and not seeing the video. Come on, man. Because here's the thing. Back at that time, like, did you know, like, if you were teaching or whatever and you got engaged or got married, it was like you were expected not, like, you could not teach anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it was, like, improper for a married woman to be teaching. So it's like, okay, sure, girls, we'll give you a college education, but it's just a formality.
That's such a good point.
Because it's like, you're going to get married right out of the gate, and then you're not allowed to do anything.
So what was the point? Yeah. So Katharine is actually proposed to in her sophomore year. not even in her senior year.
Oh, because she was fine.
So somebody actually proposed to her named Arthur Cunningham. He was a senior, she was a sophomore, so he proposed to her, and she accepted. She was, I mean, at this point she had never really.
She still got her degree.
She's still going to school. Oh yeah.
She still went and got her degree.
Oh yeah.
Dang.
Oh, but she didn't get married. They got engaged. You gotta wait. So they got engaged.
Okay.
So she accepted this proposal. She didn't tell anybody really. Like, she told her friends, I think, at college, but didn't really tell anybody in her family. Like, her own dad did not know she was ever engaged.
Wow.
She was very, very secretive of this, and I think she was scared to disappoint them. No, she was scared to disappoint them. I mean, if you think about how...
Why would it disappoint them?
If you think about how she was put into that position of being the head of the house, like the motherly role from such a young age, for her to go off and like get married and leave them, like, it was going to be a big deal.
Oh, that makes me so sad. Like,
Isn't
it's
that
like,
so sad?
you can't go have your life because you have to take care of all these grown men who don't know how to cook a sandwich.
Absolutely.
Which, FYI, you typically, one does not cook a sandwich. Like, stop laughing at me.
So she did get engaged to him, but during a brief part during school, she had to take a break from school. You want to guess why? Well, it was because she had to return home and nurse Orville to health. He was suffering from typhoid fever. We're going to see a very common trend of this time period of people getting sick with, tuberculosis and typhoid fever and really horrible things that took a lot of people from them at that time. So she had to take a break in that time, and she went home to nurse Orville back to health, which she actually did this several times during their lives, like just nursing her brothers to health. And she wasn't just a teacher, she was definitely a nurse too.
She was a nicer sister than me.
Oh, this one. Should I tell you some of the things she did?
We don't need
we'll
to
save
talk
that for
about
another
it.
time.
We don't need to talk about it.
So 1898 comes 2 years later. She goes back to college, and she's continuing her degree, and she decided to end the engagement at this point. And so it actually was a pretty like communal agreement. Like, both of them were like, yeah, we should.
I love how I'm over here like, no, girl, don't get engaged. Go get your college degree, da da da. And you're like, she ended her engagement. I'm like, what?
You're like, oh, I'm like, no, this is good for them.
She didn't ride off into the sunset with her Prince Charming.
Oh, you just wait.
Okay.
But she ended her engagement with Arthur, and he agreed. He actually, people said that he seemed relieved. Like, he was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to get married. I'm like, you're the one who proposed.
but who's gonna take care of you? Because y'all are helpless, apparently. I'm sorry.
So, Kate actually referred to this in almost engagement or almost marriage as her narrow escape later on. So it was good that it ended.
Ouch. Although I would describe some of my past relationships that way, particularly the most recent one. Narrow escape. Proceed.
Right. So then she went on to graduate. She graduated in June 1898. I'm sorry, she went to school in 1893 and graduated in 1898.
Gotcha.
At this time, only 15% of bachelor degrees at that time were given to women.
I'm surprised that it was even 15%.
Right? I know.
I'm like, wow, it's double digits. I would have thought like 3.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
So it took her almost a year to land a job as a substitute teacher after getting her degree.
Wow.
Yeah. So she really worked hard to find a job. And during the same time, it was around 1899, and her brothers began their aviation experiment. So right around their time that they're going and doing their aviation experiment, she's starting to try to find a job in her career as a teacher.
Huh.
Yeah. So she was an independent teacher. She was a great leader. She was also kind of a strict teacher when people describe her as a teacher. Kind of took after her father in that way of how her father treated her in the household of make sure you get your duties done, get this done. And she had a little bit of, some rowdy boys and students in her classroom, and she took care of that really quick.
Oh.
She had experience with that. So
yeah, sounds like.
Yeah. So she had some fun after college. She brought some of the lifestyle back home with her. Like in college, they had some parties and hiking and biking, different things like that they would do. I know, hiking and biking. That was their like.
I was sitting here thinking beer pong, things like this. You're like, they had hiking and biking. Oh.
Isn't that funny?
Well, slow down now.
Right? They did have social events like parties, but then you factor in like they would go on hiking trips and biking trips. I'm like, that's cute.
I never really thought about it, but college campuses and bicycles, that you just like unlocked a memory for me of like, I was always walking to class because I didn't want the smoke of having to bring a bike to school. In our city, get stolen
It
so
was
fast.
stolen, yeah.
So fast. And so walking to college classes and things like that and just almost getting taken out by all these bikes just whipping past. Like, memory unlocked. Go on.
No, it's so true. But Orville was actually a little bit closer to Kate at this time, and he would attend these parties that she would host. And he was, I mean, even to testify of his social awkwardness, there were pictures of him at these parties, but he was just kind of like in the corner, like kind of scared to participate.
Aww.
I know. So he was very, very shy, but he loved his sister. He was very close with his sister, so he would come to these parties with her.
Well, I should think so.
So she originally wanted to work at Steele High School. That was the school that she had been applying to. It took her so long to get the job. She finally got the job in 1901.
Sheesh. That was, what, 3 years after she graduated?
2 or 3 years, yeah.
Wow.
After she graduated to get that job. And like I said earlier, she was good at languages, like Latin and Greek at the time. So she actually, that was what she started teaching at the high school, so that seemed to fit for her.
Latin and Greek, all
At
right.
least it wasn't math, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and didn't have Terry around to teach for her, so yeah.
I know her friend Harry.
I thought you said it was Terry.
No, it was Harry Haskell. It was Harry. You're like, I thought it was Terry.
I was so sure you said Terry. Anyway, proceed.
So during this time, the boys are starting, her two brothers, Orville and Wilbur, I'm going to call them the boys, they are starting their aviation experiments and kind of kicking that off. But she was a vital part in helping them succeed and kind of pushing them to their success, because they had these great ideas, but they were like, didn't know what to do with them. Like I said, they just like really didn't have like a lot of courage or confidence to really pitch these ideas. And so she helped them kind of get that confidence going. So there was somebody who was a renowned engineer and he was in the World Authority of Aeronautics, so a very impressive person that came.
Authority of Aeronautics?
World Authority on Aeronautics. Yes. So his name was Octave Chanute, and he came to visit the brothers for a dinner, and Katharine hosted this dinner. And during the dinner, she encouraged them to like push their careers with this guy, because they were like, well, I don't know. She's like, you have these great ideas. Go talk to him. You know?
Nice.
There has actually been an incident where Will, her brother, received an honorable invite to speak in front of the Western Society of Engineers about his aviation experiments with his brother, and he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't going to do it because he was so anxious and shy, and he was like, I don't know how I would do that. I don't know how I would even speak. And Katharine was like, you need to do this. This is such a great opportunity for you. Are you kidding me?
I can just see her with like a riding crop, just like, yeah, out the door, shoot,
Go.
shoot. So she's got like big sister energy, even though she's their little sister.
Yes. No, she does. That's why I keep being like her younger brothers, and you're like, wait, I thought they were all.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, so did I.
So, I mean, she really was taking care of them so much. So the brothers, they continued their experiments, and if you can picture this, they're in this house where Katharine is still the head of the house, still cooking and cleaning, and they have like these plain like designs and big pieces all throughout the house where they're trying to like design these planes, these gliders.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like pieces of like canvas and like wood, like everywhere.
I can imagine.
And she's like, I love my brothers, but I need some space.
No, I can imagine. I lived with an engineer for a while, and the random junk everywhere.
So she knew as soon as if they would leave that she would miss them, but she was still kind of like, okay, this is a lot. So eventually the brothers moved up to Kitty Hawk, which was where they performed most of their experiments. That's where it was like known for, taking off. Okay. So they did end up leaving. And that's when Katharine was like, I do miss them. Like she was really thinking like, oh man, I wish they were back here with all of their junk all over.
Wait a minute. Hold
on. I miss them. But at some point, like even when they were out in Kitty Hawk, she was still helping them. She would actually manage their duties back home. Like she was managing their bike shop while they were gone. So she was managing that, working as a full-time teacher, and then still like at home doing the cooking and cleaning and then paying their bills. So she was doing all of this. So, and she would even go out, like she had a couple of coworkers from her school, like some teachers go out with her to Kitty Hawk to help them with like their flying machine because it was really heavy and a lot to work with. So like she helps them quite a bit during this time too.
All right.
But during this time, the Wright brothers actually would never let anybody witness their plane until they actually had a signed contract in hand, which is really smart because at this time there's a lot of debate going on over if this is actually the first flying machine. So,
and I hear that debate all the time too, that it's like, oh no, so and so invented it and someone else invented it. Why weren't we flying around then?
No, and I'm going to get into that because there is something so frustrating that's going to come up a little bit later that they had to deal with. So.
All right, I'm ready.
So after this, Katharine, she actually went on a trip with her friend Margaret. This was the one that she was actually roommates with in college. Mm-hmm. This was in 1904, but then she fell super ill with like gastric distress, and she got an intestinal infection. So she got
she fell ill with
a gastric distress.
Gastric distress.
Horrible, yeah.
So like a night at Taco Bell.
Probably not.
No?
Probably worse.
Probably worse.
Yeah.
Probably worse. You say it's worse than that.
Probably worse than that because she got an intestinal infection. So it's probably worse than that. But she actually passed from this. So
who passed from this?
Margaret.
Oh, I thought you said Katharine got sick.
No. Margaret got sick. I'm so sorry. Margaret
I apologize to your memory, Margaret. I thought she was talking about Katharine, and I was so confident that she was going to survive it. My bad.
No, Margaret did not survive. She briefly recovered, and then she relapsed and passed away.
Oh, that's awful.
So it was really sad, and this was something that kind of triggered Katharine to fall into a depression, reminding her of like her mother's passing.
Well, I mean, it would.
Yeah.
So
she just got really upset from it.
Well, and even today, infections can be incredibly dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially at that time, though. My goodness. Yeah. It was so hard. So she got deeply depressed during this time. And then this is around 1905 where we're at. And the Wright brothers finally made their first operational flight machine. And they got a patent for it in 1906. So nice. Really, really big step with them. But when they got their patent, this is when Katharine's really going to step in and help them way more. So they weren't expecting at the point for this, at this time, to be so hard to sell the airplane. They said it was even harder to sell the plane than it was to make it.
Huh.
Isn't that crazy?
That surprises me because it seems like people at that time would just be like, oh my God, you know, like.
It was really hard for them to sell their plane. I don't know. Yeah, it was so hard for them.
It's wild.
And she started helping them during this time. She stepped into place as their executive secretary. How fancy. And
no, I'm sorry. That's like the step between secretary and executive assistant and executive secretary.
Executive secretary. Yeah. So that's the part that she was kind of playing at this time.
Sorry, I don't know why that made me laugh so much.
So around 1907, the brothers went to Europe and they started getting a lot more attention in Europe for some reason with their plane. And more fame came to them. And fame actually followed Katharine too because she was always with them. Like she was with them all the time.
That's crazy because I've literally never heard of her before this.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, back here, okay, at this point, technically she was still home. So I guess she hadn't made it out to Europe yet. So the fame hadn't quite followed her, but she's going to kick up. Okay. And people like really have mad respect for Katharine.
Mad respect for her.
All right. So at this point, she's still serving all these responsibilities behind the scenes, and she's helping with their business, communicating with different magazines and newspapers, and like helping them get fame. Like the reason that they're getting this fame is because of her.
Nice.
And she also was making sure to tell their story correctly because there was a lot of miscommunication and a lot of like rumors going around with the story. So she was making sure like, no, this is what happened. Like making sure to correct everybody.
Gotcha.
She also would answer scientific questions with people. Anybody who had questions about how the plane would work, she had a lot of knowledge with it.
That's really impressive because I don't.
So. Yeah. She also corresponded with the Webster Dictionary and got a photo of the Wright glider put into it. So,
into the dictionary?
Into the Webster Dictionary. Yep. And she did all of this while she's still working full-time as a teacher.
Dang.
Yep.
Dang. They better have given her a cut.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I think it was kind of just like a family business. So, I mean, they ended up making that like really famous Wright house later on that was theirs. So, I mean, it was like she was included in it. So,
awesome.
In 1908, that's where we're at now. The brothers are doing good. They're showing their gliders to like French investors and the U.S. Army. Finally, the U.S. is like, wait a second.
The U.S. Army?
Yeah. The U.S. Army was like,
I was going to jump in. I wasn't even going to say anything. And then you did. But I was like, this isn't too long before World War I. I'm like, that was a really short time period between plane being invented and the U.S. being like, hey, how can we militarize this?
Right. Well, and the Wright brothers actually made the first U.S. military plane.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the first U.S. military plane was, it was a 1909 Wright military flyer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think once they went over to Europe and started talking with French investors, the U.S. was like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing over there?
Hey, what you got? What you got? Now, hypothetically, could we put a gun on it?
They're like, wait, what? We're just flying.
Great Wall of China for what?
So during this time, while they're out and like sharing their inventions with the French investors in the U.S. military, Katharine is nursing someone else back home to health. It was her nephew this time who was ill with typhoid fever.
Who had a kid?
It was one of her older brothers, I believe.
Oh, like the older.
Yeah,
it's like, gotcha.
I'm not 100% positive how this nephew is related, so I don't want to say.
I'm like, wait, these two men can't speak at a newspaper to advertise their product, and somebody had a kid with them?
They did not have kids. No.
Where? I'm not, okay, wait, walking that back, I'm not saying shy people can't have kids. I'm just...
Yeah, you better stop right there, because I'm very shy. You better stop.
She is a liar.
I'm so introverted, I don't even know.
She's introverted, she ain't shy.
True. I mean, yeah, you got me there.
I was gonna say, I'm like, so my child was in the hospital last week, and you should have seen her handling doctors and nurses. It's
to be done.
It's impressive. It's impressive. She ain't shy.
Not when it comes to my nephew. Absolutely not.
Fair.
So she's nursing her nephew back to health from typhoid fever, and her salary was decreased.
Her teacher salary.
Her teacher salary was decreased.
I was gonna say her brothers.
No. Oh no, you're like, I'm coming for these brothers.
I'm coming for them.
Do you want to know why her salary was decreased?
Why?
Because she was a woman. Everyone at this time in Dayton, across the whole board, everyone who was a woman, their salary was decreased simply because they were a woman.
So wait, before that, were they making the same amount as the men?
I'm not positive. I don't want to say because I'm not positive, but they were making more, and then their salary was decreased for being women.
And we didn't have a riot?
Right, and I doubt they were making the same amount before. I doubt it. I'm sure they were making less, and then now even more or less. That's probably what it was. But I don't want to say on that because I'm not sure.
For those of you that are just listening, I'm making an expression.
Just a moment of silence on that.
Just a moment of silence.
Yeah. So she nursed her nephew back to recovery, back to health, and another tragedy occurred, unfortunately, after this. Orville was actually in a test flight with somebody in the Army, actually, and he got in a really bad crash.
Oh, gosh.
And during the crash, the lieutenant from the U.S. Army, his name was Thomas Selfridge, he died in the crash. So it was really, really a bad crash. Luckily, Orville survived, but he was in really rough condition.
Well, and I would feel terrible.
Yeah. I mean, he was a passenger. Orville was flying it, so...
Oh, no. And it's his invention.
It's his invention, yeah.
Oh,
and man. So, I mean, he's showing the U.S. Army his invention, and they're starting to perfect it. And, I mean, tragedy's going to happen, so... But it's really sad. Not like that.
Dang, Alana. I mean, tragedy's going to happen, so...
When you're making a plane, like, it's destined that there's going to be a crash. But it's really sad that somebody died from it. Like, that is really, really sad. I'm not making light of that at all. But Orville was really beaten up from this accident, of course. I mean, he actually had broken ribs and, like, a damaged spine, and it was really bad. Ouch. So Katharine immediately went over to help him out and nurse him back to health as well. And this was at Fort Myer. So she went over to Fort Myer and to the hospital and, like, stayed with him for weeks at his bedside, nursing him back to health.
She does a lot of nursing.
She was a nurse. Like I said, she wasn't just a teacher. She was absolutely like a mother, like a nurse. Like she was so many roles.
She really sacrificed quite a bit.
She did. And she actually attended the funeral of Thomas Selfridge on behalf of Orville because he was in the hospital. So she went on behalf of him and attended the funeral.
I'm sure there was a lot of feelings that day.
Oh, yeah. At this time, she actually had to leave her job as a teacher to tend to Orville. So she did leave her job at the Fort Myer hospital, and he was discovered to also have a broken leg, and it wasn't just broken ribs. And he also had scalp injuries and a spinal cord injury, so it was really bad.
Man, he was lucky to survive.
Right? No, he really was. Yeah, it's a blessing that he did. So
we both just scratched our noses at the same time.
Conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. So she immediately was nursing Orville, taking care of him, and tending to their airplane business and helping them out with that. She also communicated with the nurses and the doctors, kind of like I did. Like, she was playing that role, making sure he got the care that he really needed. She helped with mail coming in, visitors coming in, and she also started researching the accident on her own. She was like, what happened? Like, why did this plane crash? So she actually started researching it. They didn't find out what had happened, unfortunately, but she did try to look into it and see what happened. Yeah. So after it was about 6 weeks of recovery for Orville, and he was almost fully recovered, so they went home to Dayton so he could finish his recovery. And this is
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. Yeah,
I've been there.
That's where this is taking place.
I think there's a museum there, like with planes and stuff. And I think I went there.
I checked it out. So they actually have it online, and they have something you can actually look if anybody's interested, where it's like a 3D thing where you can go through the whole museum. It's so cool. I was actually doing that on my free time.
That's neat. That's neat. So yeah, look up some kind of plane museum in Dayton. I don't know the name of it.
But just look up the Wright Brothers Museum, and yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think I've been there. I think it was a good time.
Yeah. So this is about 1908, and Wilbur's in Europe at the time. Orville's at home in Dayton recovering, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Wilbur's in Europe speaking with these French investors, and he actually invited his brother and sister to Europe. He's like, come on out, like there's a lot of great opportunities out here. Catherine's like, why don't you come home? Like your brother's home sick, like recovering, you need to come home.
I'm not doing all that. I'm not taking it. It was like what, 2 weeks to get across the Atlantic Ocean back then?
Oh my gosh, on boat, yeah.
Pass.
Like, why don't you hurry up and invent the plane so I can come over quicker?
Yes, hurry up and invent the plane so we can stop.
Like an actual like international flight, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, she was like, you should come here. And then he enticed her with the job opportunity. He was like, we're going to give you a new job if you come, and we'll give you a salary as a social manager. And so she was like...
So she was like the first social media manager.
Right?
Mm.
That's kind of like,
girl.
Kind of, huh? So she, because she had left her job as a teacher, she was looking for a job anyway. So she was like, this will work. Like, I'll go out to Europe, and me and my brother will see what's going on out there, and I'll get a salary as a social manager. So that's what she started doing. So it was January 1909, and she and Orville boarded a boat to France.
France.
Yep. So she
Never been
immediately...
to France.
I would love to go.
Yes, if we've got any listeners that want to like sponsor us to go to France. I mean, I know we just started this.
There's people dying, Kim.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
This hurt my feelings.
I'm just kidding. We want to go to France though. I want to just travel. That would be so nice.
I don't even have a passport.
Me either. What's up with that? We need to get on that.
Yeah.
So once they got to France, they started working, or Katharine started working right away as their social manager. She was working all day, every day, pretty much. In the morning, she would learn French. Every morning, she'd get up and start learning French. And then every lunch, well, not every single day, I'm not sure, but most lunches, she would have business lunches with different associates to like sell the product, sell the plane, and maintain good, what's the word I'm looking for? Maintain good relations with them.
Rapport.
Yeah.
Rapport. I love that word, rapport. It's such a weird word.
Such a fancy one. I don't even know how to spell that.
Rapport. I won the spelling bee in 4th grade.
Mm-hmm. They got me messed up on definitely, so.
Wow.
Definitely was the word for me. It was the I's and the E's. I was going nowhere.
It was the I's and the E's. I don't remember what words were being spelled, but I won a dictionary. Yes, and it was illustrated, and I was really proud of it.
Didn't you win that big bear, too?
That big bear was from a birthday card design competition. Mm. Yeah. We'll tell the story of Pat the Bear at some point because it was sad.
Hello, ad break, since you guys love these.
Yeah, exactly. So we are actually going to advertise for the amazing, incredible artist who created our cover art for our Patreon. It is the most amazing and wonderful Lee. Go and follow them at Leaning Tower of Pizza on TikTok and Instagram. It's spelled LEENINGTOWER Pizza. PIZZA.
I love their name. Leaning Tower of Pizza. I love that.
Lee is amazing. They sing, they do art, they are an activist who talks about important social issues. Go check them out. And if you would like to advertise with us.
Yes, because wouldn't that be an awesome opportunity?
It would be such a great opportunity for you. I mean, listen to us. We're going to be famous. You want to advertise with us. But reach out to us at bestieenergythepod@gmail.com.
Please, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. And for the rest of you, go join the Patreon because why are you listening to ads?
Wait, so we are in France. Katharine has picked up this role as a social manager, and she is working in the morning to learn French, going on these business meetings to meet with associates, and then by the afternoon, she's going out to the flying field to actually meet with these different elites that would come to see the flying plane. So she would go out there, and she was the one she was their manager, so she was the one doing the communication between the two of them.
That makes sense.
So she was a natural at socializing. She had picked up this role her whole life. And there's actually a story. She actually got to meet some really cool people because of her job as the social manager. She got to meet the King of Spain at the time. And when she got to meet him, she practiced this curtsy to like be formal when she met him. But then when she went up to meet him, she was like, went into autopilot and got so stressed that she just gave him a handshake and a big old smile and was like, hi, nice to meet you. Aww. And he actually like loved her. He was like, oh, she's so authentic, and he really, really liked her.
So she was like charismatic.
She was charismatic, yes.
Nice.
She eventually became the third woman to ever fly a plane. But when she wasn't flying a plane, she was often a passenger while her brothers were.
Who? Flying. Okay, wait a minute. Her brothers were the people who invented the plane. She was there the whole time. Who were the first two?
I need to find out, actually. Let's find out.
Okay, we're gonna pause real quick while Alana finds out who the heck.
I wonder if it's like right after they invented their plane, like somebody else invented like a similar plane, like at the same time, but theirs was technically still the first. Do you know what I'm saying?
Maybe, or they had like side pieces.
Nah.
But no, how the heck is she not the first woman to fly a plane?
The first woman to fly a plane was Bestie Wright. It was in the United States.
Huh.
I don't know why.
I don't know.
Wait, in the Wright type plane. It was a Wright plane.
Okay, well, I guess we'll look her up later. Maybe tell her story. But I don't understand how Katharine wasn't the first.
We need to find that out.
That's wild.
All right. But she was the third, and then she also was a passenger all the time when they were flying the plane, which is pretty cool. So.
She had to have been the first woman to be in a plane.
I would think.
One would think.
They weren't dating anybody, so what was going on?
Yeah. Excuse me, boys.
Yeah. So this is where the respect that I was talking about earlier starts to come in. She was so involved with her brothers, like around them all the time, helping them. She was their manager. She was the one doing the talking. She was like the face of the company, pretty much. And I don't want to say that because, I mean, when people think of the Wright Brothers company, they think of the Wright Brothers, but she was the one who was doing so much. But people got so much respect for her that they actually thought that she was doing more than she actually did in the company. Like they thought that she was the one that did the mathematic equations, that she was the one that did the sewing for like the canvas for the plane and everything. And she was like, no, I actually didn't do that. But that shows just how much people respected her and thought.
That's impressive. Because how often do we credit women with a thing they didn't do?
Right? So yeah, people were like, are you sure you didn't have more to do with it? And she was like, no, I mean, I did help a lot, but she was really humble in it too. Like she was like, I didn't do anything. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So wait, you're telling me the men did their own sewing?
Yeah, it would appear so.
Huh.
It would appear so. I mean, there's nothing in here that says that she helped at all with that part of it, so no.
Wild.
Yeah, so.
Wild.
But this is a pretty sweet thing. This is something Orville wrote about his sister, Katharine. He said, Katharine was always a loyal sister who had great confidence in her brothers, and when we said that we thought we would fly, she believed we would. Which is pretty sweet, because it's like, if you think back at the time, like this is the late 1800s, early 1900s, these boys are like, we're going to make a flying machine. I mean, they had kites at the time, like kind of looking up to that. And I mean, most people were probably like, you do that. And she believed in them.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's incredible.
So she was her brother's greatest advocate throughout this time.
Sounds like it.
So when the three of them left France, they were all awarded the Legion of Honor, or if you would like to try to say this in French, it's this one right here.
I love how you put the in English.
Just this part.
She put the Ordre National de la Légion d'Honneur.
Legion of Honor.
I took 4 years of French, and the best thing I can say in French is mon français est très terrible.
I took several years of Spanish, and I could just be like, me deja ir al baño. Can I go to the bathroom?
I can still say the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish, but we're getting off track.
Anyways, so she was awarded this. She remains one of the only American women to have ever received this award.
That's fascinating.
Really cool. So once they got back to America, the respect and the fame from Europe followed them back. People were like, oh my gosh, you guys are the Wright siblings. You guys did this amazing thing, you know? Mm-hmm. She got to go to the White House.
Oh.
And she got to witness the presentation of medals with President Taft. There's actually a picture of her next to President Taft in this beautiful white dress, and she's totally standing out against all of these men.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So around this time, she ran into her friend Harry Haskell from college, and
I knew he was coming back.
Yeah, why would I bring him up? If
I knew it. I heard about the math tutor, and I was like, late night studying. Hey.
Well, they're just friends, Clark. They're just friends. So,
I don't believe you.
We're getting some suspicions. He asked to actually set up an interview because he was working at this time as an interviewer after college. So he actually asked her, he was like, can I set up an interview with your brothers? And she worked with him to make this happen.
I'm sure she did.
So during this time, she had left her job as a teacher, like I had mentioned earlier. The whole time, they were holding the job for her. They were like,
dude, people loved this woman.
Yeah.
Wow.
Come back. So
where do I get that energy?
Right? She planned to return. She actually really loved being a teacher and she wanted to go back. But she was just needed in the business, in the aviation business. And she was like, I'm my brother's social manager. I have this really key role. I'm doing good. I'm not going to go back. So she actually resigned completely and was like, I'm not going to come back.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So she continued with this business. They actually ended up going to Germany, which was pretty cool.
Bad time.
Bad time
for that.
to be in Germany, but she
Bad
did go to
time
Germany
for that.
Yeah. So she went to Germany, but during this time, American investors were working together to actually like underwrite the Wright brothers and say that they weren't the ones that invented the plane. There's all these people. Like, this was a really big stress on, I mean, Katharine too, but mostly just the Wright brothers, because people were constantly claiming, you guys aren't the first ones. We had this one first. And they're like, that one didn't work.
Have gotten a patent.
Right? Well, and also, like, there were technically flying machines that were being invented before, but they weren't capable of flying yet.
Yeah, clearly they didn't work because we weren't flying.
So they were working really hard to try to underwrite them, and this unfortunately led for like a brief amount of time, led to Katharine not really having a position in the career, in the job. Yeah. There just wasn't a lot going on in their business at the time, so she just wasn't needed as much. So she did a lot of cool stuff in the meantime. She was volunteering. She was an activist for women's right to vote, and she was the director of Young Women's League in Dayton. So she was, the whole time, like her whole life, she was just doing things for other people. It was amazing.
Wow, she sounds like a great person.
She really does. She also started designing and constructing the famous Wright House known as Hawthorne Hall.
Oh, she designed it?
Yeah, she was in charge of the design. Like, she was in charge of it.
Wow, I wouldn't even know where to begin with something
like, how is
that.
she so like talented in all of these different aspects? It's amazing.
That's incredible.
So she designed it. She put together like the construction for it and got that house started. This is a kind of sad turn, but in 1912, Wilbur, the older brother, got really ill, and he developed typhoid fever. And we've heard about this a couple times throughout this podcast, but he hung around for about a month and then he passed away, unfortunately, at the end of May. And so Kate and Orville were really devastated by this loss. I mean, understandably. I mean, that was their brother. They thought that he actually died because he was so overworked and stressed from trying to maintain this patent of trying to like get people to understand their story and not like make all of these different rumors. And they thought he was just so stressed from that that's what killed him.
Oh my gosh.
So after this, Orville stepped in as the president of the company, and he was really not familiar with this role, was not happy with it. He was like, I don't feel comfortable doing this. And then Katharine stepped back in and became the secretary of the company. This is so frustrating because there was a Langley Aerodome in 1903 that this is one of the planes that people were saying, no, that one was invented first, even though it couldn't fly. But somebody named Glenn Curtis went back and restored the plane and made over 30 changes to the plane. And the Smithsonian recognized it as the first one.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Was it in the air first?
It had previously failed in 1903, just before the Wright brothers succeeded. And we're like, we did it. And Curtis simply did it just to prove that he wasn't the one that originally invented it, but he made all the changes.
So he wasn't even the original. Okay. It's like, sure, go back and make changes after we found how to fly. Cool, right? Cool.
But the fact that the Smithsonian honored the Aerodome as it was the first aeroplane capable of flight.
Well, Langley's a big name, right? And like the Smithsonian is like, I mean, is basically like a rich man's club, right? So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Well, and now, like, even at the museums that I was looking at, the Smithsonian is recognizing them as the Wright brothers.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the Smithsonian still. I don't check me on this because do check me on this because I'm not totally sure, but don't they still have like mummies and ancient artifacts and things from all over the world that they've refused to give back?
Probably.
Okay, I do not respect their opinion.
I mean, probably. So yeah, that really angered Katharine and Orv. This is also after their brother died, and now they're saying, "Oh, they didn't invent the first one." Are you kidding me?
That's ridiculous.
So that was really frustrating. So not long after this, Orville actually sold the company in 1915, and he started just conducting more private research into aviation on his own. But his biggest effort for the rest of his life was just exposing the Smithsonian for their lies, like just being like, "You guys lied about this."
Ugh.
So Katharine really helped with that too, but they were very passionate about exposing the Smithsonian for that.
Mm-hmm.
So after this, Harry is going to come back.
I knew it. I knew it. I've been saying.
So Harry does come back. He had gotten married, but his wife passed, unfortunately. And Katharine and him started becoming friends and started to build relations. And from there...
Relations.
They started to fall in love. And Harry actually proposed to Katharine, and she accepted. So super excited. She was terrified to tell Orville, though. I mean, that's her last surviving brother. And, well, not last surviving brother, but Wilbur had just died. Her last close brother to her, and she's like, I don't want to tell him because, like I've talked about this whole time, she's really scared of their reaction to her getting a man.
But I mean, she's done so much. She deserves some happiness.
Don't you think so? She's in her 50s at this point.
Like, okay, just because you're a nerd and you never want to get married or be around anybody or anything like that doesn't mean she can't.
100%.
Like, she sounds like she was really a people person and was like out here living life. Like, let the woman get laid.
100%. So she was terrified to tell him, but she did respect their relationship, so she did tell him, and he didn't react well.
Oh, of course he did.
Yeah. He had depended on Katharine his whole life, and he saw this as a move of betrayal.
Yes. Are you kidding me?
Yes. He saw this as a move of betrayal. How upsetting is that?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. He was like, what do you mean you're leaving me? Like, I rely on you.
We are not the Targaryens. This is not any kind of brother-sister marriage. Yeah. Excuse me.
So what he did is he pretty much ghosted her. That's our word today. He ghosted them.
I love how you just explained the word ghosted to a bunch of
I know they know what I'm talking about, but I mean, the article that I'm reading, I had read before was like, he iced him out. He ghosted. Okay.
He ghosted his sister who worked her butt off her whole life, left her job for them.
Yep.
Nursed them, had been taking care of them since she was 15 years old.
14.
I thought this was a happy story.
It is a happy story. It's gonna end happy because she finds her happiness with Harry. Okay.
All right.
Because finally Harry starts taking care of her.
Word.
Finally, there's whole time she's been taking care of people, and Harry starts taking care of her.
Get it, girl. Get it.
So she moved to Kansas City, actually, with Harry, and they got married in 1926, and they decided to enjoy the rest of their life together.
Aww.
And so it's actually, I mean, of course, at this time, Katharine's not alive today. She did pass away, unfortunately. She died from pneumonia, and it was actually only a few years after they got married, so that was pretty sad. It was only 1929, so they had only been married about 3 years when she died.
But at least she was happy.
But she got to find her happiness at the end. And something really cool at her ending, Harry actually had wanted to originally take her to this really beautiful fountain from Florence. I would like you to pronounce it again.
Florence in where?
It's a fountain in Florence. But
where is Florence?
Italy.
Oh, see, this I don't know. Why do you want me to pronounce things in Italy?
Because you're probably better at it.
I love the mishmash of English.
The fountain of.
Yeah. She put in, she's like, pronounce this, the fountain of Palazzo Vecchio. I just sounded like a vampire. I was going for an Italian, and then it came out Transylvanian. My bad. My bad. I was like, I want to suck your blood. Palazzo Vecchio.
So Palazzo Vecchio is a beautiful fountain that Harry had seen, and he really wanted to take Katharine to this fountain. She actually didn't get to, unfortunately. But when she passed, he had gotten the Oberlin College that she went to actually recreate this fountain at that college in honor of her.
Is it still there?
It's still there.
Wow.
It's still there. Yeah. So
Nice.
that's the end of her story. She's actually buried in Dayton with her family, but she does have this beautiful fountain made after her.
So now I want to know, did Orville get his?
Did Orville get his?
He ghosted his sister after all this, right?
Well,
Did
he
anything
did come
happen to
back.
him?
He did come back before she passed. He actually, when she was sick, Harry called Orville and was like, "Your sister's sick. Are you going to come say bye?" Like, you know. So he did come on her last day before she died, and he was there, and he was like,
I'm like, sir, you made a pact as a child.
seriously, as a child. And
As a child, you made a pact to be there.
one day before she died. And then when he came, Harry actually asked Catherine, like, "Orville's here. Do you recognize him?" And she was like, "Of course I do."
She just seems like such a bad bee. Like, I can just see her being like, do I recognize my brother? What are you talking about?
Well, and I just hope that when he came, she was like, "What's the matter with you?"
Yeah, I hope she smacked him up on the side of his head. I hope she just went, well, bam!
Because it was 3 years of him ghosting her.
What a little child.
Yeah, so that's pretty unfortunate, but it is so exciting that she got her happy ending finally and got somebody to take care of her and show that same love.
And had love and all of these things. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I'm really sad though that her name isn't so well known as her brother's. It sounds like she was really there for the whole journey.
She really was. Like, she helped raise them, helped nurse them, take care of them, helped in so many aspects, was their biggest advocate, was playing the social role that they couldn't play. Which, I mean, there's so many people that, like with you and me, like, we help each other out in so many ways.
We do.
And it's like, I don't know, I just really wish that they showed her, like, the respect that she deserved.
So basically, she had the bestie energy and Orville did not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to accuse Wilbur of it because he didn't ghost her and, you know, unfortunately he passed. But Orville,
what's up?
you're lacking the bestie energy, my friend. That's not how we do.
Well, and it's sad because they really were so close, like, for so long, and they had this beautiful relationship, and all of a sudden, it's like, you're going to go get married? Dude.
How dare you? The audacity.
So I'm glad she didn't, you know, put her love aside and stay with Orville, and she was like, no, I'm going to go get married.
No, she sounds like she really advocated for herself.
Good for her.
There at the end. So that's fantastic.
That's
so
the story.
Wow, that's a great story. I think that was a really beautiful first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of this story. Let us know what you think, or if there's things that you learned new that you might not have heard before, or if there's things that you know that I don't know about her.
Yeah, and make sure you comment and find us on all platforms. We're going to be at Bestie Energy the Pod. Bestie Energy the Pod. And again, join our Patreon if you want to be listening to these things ad-free and early. Drop comments down below. On Patreon, we're also going to be allowing people to vote on future episodes. So, you know, it's a good time. It's a good time. And yeah, we're really excited that you guys are here. And
so excited. I'm like jumping down, up and down inside because...
She's jumping down.
I'm jumping down inside. I'm jumping up and down because this has been a long time in the making, and I'm really excited to make it.
It really has. It really has. This has been a dream. So we're really excited. So thank you for listening to us.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me here, Clark, too.
This is not my podcast.
This
is our podcast. But we are in my closet.
But we are in your closet. And also, so many people here don't know either of us, but so many people here know Clark. So thank you so much for showing the world me.
Y'all are gonna see. It's not that Alana needs me. I need Alana.
Oh my goodness.
So you know, she can just stop with this weird attitude that's happening right now.
I'm so excited to meet you guys, though. Thank you for watching.
Yeah. Goodbye, besties.
Bye, besties.